All right, so welcome back to another episode of the Canon. I got a special episode today, bringing back two esteemed guests from our last draft. We had so much fun that we decided to run it back. We branch outside of the superhero universe with our taste. We go deep into the classics and the realm of theater. So we're going to do some Oscar drafts, and we're going to do Best Original Screenplay this time. For the sake of time, since we're busy people, we're going to keep it to three. And we'll be drafting from the last 3 years, 2019, 2018, 2017. Again, original screenplay, not adapted. So we're going to give Brian the first crack to get the first pick. Are you ready?
Born ready. Let's go.
All right, Brian. Mad Max Fury Road won an Oscar for Best Costume. What year was that?
What year did the movie come out, or what year was the Oscars?
The Oscar.
16.
Incorrect. Sorry.
Oh, I know what it is.
It was 2015. All right, Corey. If Corey gets this correct, he'll have the first pick. I'll have the second. Brian will have the third. If he gets it incorrect, I'll have the first pick. All right, Corey. The Social Network won an Oscar for Best Editing. What year was that?
So that would have been the 2011 Oscars?
2010. Sorry about that. That's all right. Good try, everybody. I have the first pick. This is great. Actually, not really. I don't know what I'm going to pick, but I have...
Who's got second? Who's got second?
Corey would. No,
Why?
He goes to the back. You got second, Brian.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. I'm gonna have the best list anyway. But no, obviously Oscar-nominated movies. These are all really good choices. They're all tough to pick between. And for me personally, the writing part is my big jam. So it's really hard because I have a lot to appreciate in all of these. But I'm going to go with one of the movies that's one of my favorite movies. And I already know I'm about to get crap for this for my first pick. But I don't care. I'm going to go with The Big Sick. The Big Sick from 2017. Kumail Nanjiani and his wife wrote a movie that was pretty much based on how they actually met. And I think this was Kumail's coming out party in general for a lot of things, writing, for being more dramatic than comedic, even though there was comedy in there. It was just overall, I think the dialogue, I think the story, I think the way it flowed, it just, it had a lot in there. It had a lot about interracial culture and couples. It had a lot about comedy life. It had a lot about health care and just a lot of different things packed into it, obviously based off a true story of sorts, but I just thought one of the most well-rounded movies I saw that. But 2017 was a great year in general, just outside of these movies. But Big Sick is the one that stands out, and I will recommend it to anybody that hasn't watched it. I've had like at least 10 people watch it now from my private collection. So
I may have to borrow that from you because I haven't seen it. I've heard nothing but great things, and it's one that I've always been wanting to check out.
All right,
I'm not hating on it. I like it. I mean, The Big Sick is a well-written film. It has a lot of great humor. I mean, Kumail Nanjiani's come out was for Silicon Valley, so that was incorrect, but that's okay.
Sorry.
Silicon Valley is an excellent show. But no, I think it was really good. I'm sad you didn't bring up my boy Ray Romano.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, brah.
Everybody in it. I mean... Yeah, Corey hasn't saw it, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but yes.
My boy Bo Burnham, I mean, come on. That was...
I mean, Bo was barely in the movie, but... Anyway.
Yeah, but he was essential.
Go ahead.
No, I think it's interesting that you picked that so high, but I respect the choice.
Your turn.
My turn. Okay. Man. Hold on. Let me look up. Oh, no, I already know what I'm picking. I'm going with the movie that probably is not going to. Corey's going to be happy that he gets the movie he wants first, and I'm glad I got to do that for you, Corey. Because I'm picking Lady Bird. So this was Greta Gerwig's coming out party because Greta Gerwig had not written and directed a film yet. Greta Gerwig was a great actress, married to Noah Baumbach. You know, just interesting background there. I mean, there's a Noah Baumbach feature in this category, which Marriage Story, great film, big fan. But I think what I really appreciated about Lady Bird was the storytelling that it did, that it encapsulated such a version of high school that was so hard to capture. Like the regret that you see on Lady Bird's face when she hooks up with Timothée Chalamet, man, who hasn't had a moment like that? I think just the love letter that is there for Sacramento, I thought was really well done. Because, like, who's sitting there being like, yo, rep Sacramento? Aside from Hassan Minaj, like, nobody's doing that. So it was cool to see that. I thought the Catholic school humor was great. As somebody who attended a Catholic school, it was all spot on. So I just appreciated that. The relationship with the mom was really good. There were other conversations about like class. There were other conversations about social justice. It tapped on a lot of things that I cared about and did it in a humorous way, but also did it in a emotional way too. That I was like, man, I really connected, not with Lady Bird the character, but Lady Bird the movie.
Lady Bird is a movie. Both Greta Gerwig movies recently are ones I'm like, do I want to see this? I don't think I'm gonna like it. And then halfway through, I'm like, gosh darn you, Greta, you got me. And so this wasn't a movie. I think this was during my Movie Pass era. Remember Movie Pass, everybody? And so I was trying to see all the Oscar films and wanted to see that. But what you said about the cast, Beanie Feldstein's in it. She's great. Laurie Metcalf is amazing as her mother. And yeah, I really enjoy it. It was very funny. It's very heartfelt at times. A lot of those things that I couldn't relate to. I think there are some components just being a teenager that I was thinking about, like, wow, that does, I've seen that either not myself, but my friends or our students as we work in a college campus. But that was, I think, the surprise movie that I saw during that year, a movie I thought I wasn't gonna like and then left thoroughly pleased.
It's one of those movies that it was a coming out party for a whole bunch of people. I mean, I always get his last name wrong. Is it Lucas Sims? Who's in Manchester by the Sea? He's in. So. Yeah. I mean, he was in 600 movies that year. But this is one of the first ones, aside from Manchester by the Sea, that I remember him in. This was a big Timothée Chalamet role. Saoirse had already been big, but this was something that made Saoirse, like, I think, pop culture-y. Greta Gerwig's big coming out party, like it was a big moment for a lot of people. So yeah, man, Terry, what do you got?
It's Lucas Hedges. That's what I thought.
Damn it!
But see, of course you picked this movie. Because I know how this is going to come off. I am not a fan of Lady Bird. It is not you, Brian. It's just the movie. I'm just in the minority with that. I think overall, I just found it a little boring. But I think to Corey's point, I felt myself not really connecting with what was going on. And other movies I've had where I'm not like the demographic that's being represented, I felt like they did better ways of bringing me into the movie. Even, for example, Little Women, which not my demographic as well with Greta Gerwig, but
what are you talking about?
I felt
big Florence Pugh fan over there.
Oh yeah, I mean her performance as well, but I just felt like for me, Lady Bird was just not something that I was big into. So I would not have picked that at the top, but it's nothing against your taste. I think everything you said about the movie is true. I guess it just didn't impact me as much, but I know I'm in a vast minority with that. Lady Bird was really well received.
Listen, we know you've had bad takes on this podcast before. You just continue the tradition. By the way, since Corey brought it up, I forgot to tell your listeners out there, Canon, sponsored by MoviePass. Who knew?
Get your $10 unlimited.
It's time to be alive.
Man, miss the MoviePass days.
All right, Corey.
You all are so giving, so I thank you so much. Because my movie is hands down in my top 5 of best films of the 2010s. Probably one of my favorite movies of all time. When the premise was shown, when we saw that trailer, I'm like, this Blumhouse movie looks like it's gonna be a hot mess. Just weird. And then, to my shock, going to the theater that night to see that movie and the mind trip that I was on, that I then proceeded to go see additional 4 times in the theaters, mine is Get Out. I think, I followed Jordan Peele from his Mad TV days, and then to see that to Key and Peele, and then to see him and Keegan-Michael Key's Keanu, which was okay movie. It's one I was super excited about and was a little disappointed, but like for their first venture out was fine. But to see Jordan Peele, known for comedy, do a horror film, and just based on topic of race in an interracial relationship, it just was just like this mind trip. Like, what is this? And knowing that Blumhouse was also kind of they had a hit or miss record with their films. So it's like, this could be great or this could be garbage. But just that a movie where you watch it again and you catch things that you didn't catch the time before. Just the various themes that were done, the setups, the stuff at the beginning of the film that you thought were just throwaways, that at the end you're like, oh my God, that was an important piece to everything. The cast, like Daniel Kaluuya, I know that he had Black Mirror by that point, but like that just put him on the map. And I didn't watch Girls. I knew Allison Williams was on there, but to see that shift, Bradley Whitford, it's just Lakeith Stanfield. That's for me, my first time seeing him in a film, or at least being aware of him in a film. It's a small cast, but it's a mighty cast, and things are just kind of okay at the moment, but as the movie goes on, the tension just amplifies, and even Lil Rel Howery, the MVP of the movie, that's best friend goes right there. But just everything that's there, that even at the end, I was thinking of something recently where you're like, oh my gosh, the end is here, we're good to go, and then I'm not sure we can go further, but like when the police lights come, and I think as a Black man, that was a whole nother level of like, okay, he's made it through. But in this day and age of police brutality, like, oh my, and knowing that there was an alternative ending where it was a darker ending, to see what we got was like this release of like, thank you God that there was something here that like, could take off this pressure. But it's just a movie that I go back to whenever it's on TV. It's one of those films I will stop and watch over and over again. And while Us may not have been at the same standard as Get Out, I continue to look forward to what Jordan Peele's done. I think like with these like Lovecraft Country in the Twilight Zone, and the upcoming Candyman, whenever we get that, it has helped put him on the map and has given horror, particularly Black horror, a presence, and it's also prompted some great conversations about being Black. So for me, Get Out is just to me, it's a masterpiece.
I think Get Out was an unfair first film for Jordan Peele to have, because it set such a high bar for him. I mean, the only reason why I think people diss Us more as much as they do is because Get Out was so perfect. I think when we're talking about writing, I picked Lady Bird because it's a more emotional connection, but I think Get Out is probably the smartest film that I've seen in a very long time. Just all the symbolism that's in there, that everything is so intentional, that every single part of that was well thought out. You pick up on all these different things because there's like conspiracy theories about all the different things that happen in the movie. Like, oh, he picked this song because of this reason. He picked this because of this. And you can go in such a deep dive, and that's such a credit to his writing. And it's a credit to him in the interviews following of saying, I ain't going to tell you everything. So it's probably the best, not probably, it's easily the best written film. I just picked one that I liked more connecting to me. But Get Out is definitely not even objectively, like, it's just a better film.
It's an example of a movie that I saw multiple times, and I'll put it up there with Avengers Endgame and Paranormal Activity, in that I went to go see them again because I wanted to go with people so I could see the reactions for it. So when Get Out, things were happening, when they found out what was going on, it was just like a, hold up, wait, what? Like, it's just the reaction. I'll also put on there the movie Acrimony, the classic Tyler Perry film Acrimony, in regards to like the call and response from the audience of like, what is going on? What are you doing? Don't go there. Like, that was like, that audience, that theater experience was great because there was a lot of WTFs going on with that. And so I put up there with those other films to be like, I was waiting for moments to happen to see how the audience was going to respond and my friends were going to respond to what they were watching.
Acrimony is the Taraji P. Henson movie, right?
Yes.
Oh man, that was hard for me to watch.
You don't stay awake at night trying to find out how you pop a boat and you get back on the boat dry. Like, you never. 3 years later, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Corey, go sit down somewhere.
That just hurt my head. But I would just quickly say, like, Get Out was definitely one that grew on me over time. Is one that I liked the first viewing and then continued over time to really respect it. And it is something that you could just jump in and really like. So, but I would say overall, I agree with Brian's comments. Smart is what I would describe it as, just in a way that I think kind of got away from Jordan. With Us, I think it was more subtle in what it was doing, but enough to where you could take it in as a regular audience member. Even if you aren't someone that's in those shoes, like for me, it connects a lot more knowing those situations, but even still, I think it was laid out in the way that they talked. It was laid out in the situations that Jordan put them in, that anybody could really understand like what the tension was there. And so I think that was probably one of the biggest things that made it so popular, is that you said a lot without saying a lot. And so I definitely give it big props for that. But Corey, you're back up, so you get to pick your number 2.
All right. I am, let's see. Are we going by year or does it matter what year?
You can pick whatever.
Okay.
We all did.
All right. Well, we'll keep this mind trip one going. And my number 2 is Parasite. And so it was the movie that people kept saying like, hey, you have to see this movie. And people were like, but we can't tell you what's going on. And so we waited here in town and it finally came. I saw it at the normal theater up the street. And just like Get Out, it was like what is going on? It went from being like this like semi-comedy of like what I would consider terrible people doing terrible things that impacted other terrible people. And then halfway through, you get this flip of, oh, there's more to this story, and it's layered. And you start to look at the characters that we've been following in a different light, and how it talks about class within communities and, access. It's a fun time, but then at the like halfway through, when we get these reveals, the mood changes until you get to the last 15 minutes of it, and it's really like what is going on here? And so I haven't been like kind of Get Out. There hasn't been other movies like that where I've been on this ride where I started one way and I ended it completely. Like Avengers Endgame, we knew what was going to happen. It was just I want to see the how. Whereas this was like, here's a story that starts one way, and at the end it was like, I wouldn't even imagine what this was about. And so I just, I have gotten an appreciation of going back and watching other films. I'm blanking on the director's name right now, but going back and watching other films to see like, oh, this is like the quality is there. And so when the Oscars happened and that sweep happened, it makes sense. But yeah, I just really fell in love with that movie, and it's one that I tell people, like, if you don't know anything about it, don't look anything up. Just watch it for yourself, and then tell me. Like, that's not like my mom's type of movie. And when she watched it, she was like, "Whoa, what is this? What is going on?" But I really loved Parasite, so that's my number 2.
I think after I watched it, I was like, this is the most original movie I've seen in a long time. It was something that hadn't been done before, but also it goes back to that concept of being smart. It plays on so many different concepts. I mean, I think I remember talking with you about it after I saw it, and you were like, name a more iconic Peach movie. And I was like, James and the Giant Peach, but shout out to Call Me By Your Name. But maybe that's too spicy to say on the Canon podcast. But no, I thought it was just a really smart movie. I think it deserved every award it got this past year. And I remember going into the Oscar season being like, I hope it wins, but it's Hollywood, and they're I mean, hashtag Oscar so white. Like, we were expecting, something else to win, but we got what we actually wanted to win. So that was a big moment right there.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. That's the best advice. Like, if you don't know what it's about, just don't look it up, because I forgot the director's name too, but looking at his filmography and the name of the movie, I had a real idea of what this might be, because everyone was like, that was the craziest thing ever. So I'm like, okay, it's got to be sci-fi. It's got to be something. And even seeing, yeah. And then just seeing the poster, I'm like, okay, what is this? Like, and then to see that it was like one of the most relatable movies, and not to say that it had to be, but to do what it did in the Oscars, it really did, because when a movie, well, first of all, we never had a movie, a foreign movie win the Best Picture category. And so to do that, I think you really had to tell a story that was going to be relatable to multiple audiences. And, sitting in America watching what's happening in South Korea and between these two families, you just could easily see yourself in that situation, or how that could play out. And that's all credit to the story that they chose to tell. And again, putting the characters in situations that we knew that we could be familiar with. And so I think that all wrapped up into just, I don't know if it's more like I didn't see it coming, or if it was just great execution. But I would say by the end of it, it took its originality up a whole nother level, because I think that's when you really get into the theories of how did it really end, and like all these different things. And so it packed almost everything you wanted in a movie, and then to do that with the subtitles is just super impressive as well, to get across through the American audience.
How dare you, two-time alumni of Illinois State University, not bring up the biggest call-out in ISU history?
I was about to say that it was sitting in Noma, Illinois, and then they say the name. I'm like, is this like for every, like, is this an exclusive copy? And then they just write universities across the country, and I'm like, whoa, like our actual schools in here.
Well, the funny thing is, like, you could have got it probably pretty cheap. No one knew that movie was going to take off like that. And then imagine you got it cheap, and then now it's the best picture. But hey, I think that goes without saying. Go Birds. All right, Brian, your turn.
All right. I don't know if this one's controversial, but we'll just we'll go for it. I think if we're going based on original screenplay, you got to think about the words and the dialogue that are taking place. I'm going with Knives Out. I think it's important to distinguish why I'm picking it, for the dialogue and the writing. It is a testament to the writer and the director of the movie that they managed to cram all these big names into one film, get them all speaking and get them all speaking roles where they're important to the film, and get the point across still and get an ending that was semi-surprising. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see this with you, Corey. I saw it with Eric, but I texted you afterwards and I was like, man, I called the ending, but it was still a dope movie. I thought the writing, I think the dialogue, I think just how they were able to converse and demonstrate emotion with all these different people in a room is a testament to the writing of the film. Because if the dialogue was terrible, it wouldn't have been a Best Picture nominee. It wouldn't have been at the Oscars. But the dialogue was crucial, and that's why it was an important movie and why people went to go see it. Because with all these people doing quick whips and throwing things out there and fast dialogue, it's important to be able to have meaningful words that you pick up from all of that. So looking at the rest of the list of what we have out there, are there movies I liked more? Yeah. But do I think any of them have better dialogue than Knives Out? No. I rest my case.
I think for me is that also trying to think about like when is like the last like good movie mystery that we've gotten, a mystery film. Like, you know, while I love Murder on the Orient Express, like it's a remake. It's a character that's been around for decades. And so we don't get many movie mysteries. And also I think from a generation where like living with my mom and my great aunt, that where the shows like Murder, She Wrote and Matlock and Columbo, like all these different mystery shows were on. It was a kind of a callback to that. And so for me, it was a sense of like comfort, of like, here's a movie that could have been like a Hallmark Channel mystery movie or something on Lifetime, but just with the clever writing and the cast that they have to get, you know, ranging from, you know, Michael Shannon to Don Johnson to Jamie Lee Curtis. You know, you hear all these different people. Lakeith Stanfield, once again, popping up in another movie. And then Daniel Craig in the most non-Daniel Craig role, doing his best human Foghorn Leghorn impersonation, which was also represented in the movie. And Chris Evans, who came off of being everyone's favorite character of Captain America and was in a movie playing a jerk. And so it was just a really, it's a project that shouldn't have happened, because the last time we saw that was that Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve, and those movies we get everybody, but the story is not good. But you have all these high-profile actors or veteran actors come together, and they all feed off of one another, and it's just that the bantering back and forth, and you know the clues and things. You know, I'll use an example, a spoiler alert, but when they're like, "We're sorry, we didn't invite you to the funeral," I believe what it was, to the main character. And it's like, I was outvoted. And it's like, well, there's only 3 of you, and 2 of you said you were outvoted. And so it's interesting like that. I didn't catch it right away, but like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And so just to have that dialogue there was very witty, and you know, I liked Daniel Craig's character. And it's like, I was like, I would like to see that character come back and solve another mystery. So glad they're making a sequel at some point in 2025. But yeah, that was a special experience, at least for me.
Ryan, I like Knives Out. Knives Out is a very good movie. I can't put it up here in this echelon. Now, only because Brian talks so much crap about my list from the MCU, I gotta poke holes in his list. But I agree, the dialogue is the star of the show. Because for me, I also called the ending, and when it comes to writing, if I can do that, I'm kind of not. At least when it's a mystery, I'm like, okay, that deflates me a lot. Because, and this is spoilers for people that didn't watch it, you could go watch it, but there was no moment you didn't know it was Chris Evans. Like, it's just like they gave motivation for every character, but it was like nothing really ever made you think it was anybody other than Chris Evans. but the journey up until there was great. So I will give you the dialogue part. I think the story part is interesting as it is. I just think, halfway through, I knew what was about to happen.
Well, I think that's the part where that's why I made a caveat very, very directly that the writing and the dialogue were exceptional.
It was. I personally, I have other movies that are a little more well-rounded, but
it's a good thing we're talking about screenplay writing.
Yeah, of course. Or stories, I should say. But I mean, I already won because now I get to go back to back in both the movies I want on here. So, but we can continue this just for fun. So, but let me win real quick. So my number 2 is this could have been my number 1. This I think probably is, in my opinion, top 3 out of this whole list, and that's 3 Billboards, which I don't want to read the whole title, but 3 Billboards. Especially when we're talking about original screenplays. I think we mentioned that a few times, and I think all those movies it applies to, and this is another one where you talk about original. You talk about just drop you in the middle of something. And one thing I really appreciate about it is it never took any time to do flashbacks and to like build up, hey, this is where the character came from. It put you right in the middle of their current life, and it just showed you the events that kind of revealed past trauma. And it revealed how it affected their actions in the moment. And that alone was impressive. But then when you talk about the character progression of, I forgot his name in the movie, but Sam Rockwell's character, which I think if I was to give a knock, it happens quickly to go from that type of person to that type of person. But within the time frame of what we had, because even by the end, he's not a good person per se, but he's had to come face to face with his actions and what that did to other people, but also what it ended up doing to him. But just a movie about pain, and not just one person's pain, but kind of how that pain and anger affects everybody and can spread a little bit. And then you talk about the comedy in it. Like there's so many people laughing at, this character that is just kind of outlandish. But then you remember, like, what's the setup of this story? It's a very dark concept of what happened to this person's family. And, we're not talking about performances and everything. I think just honestly, the story that they created, the world they created, and the dialogue and how it got across what these characters were all about. And it got across, like, how they have been hurt and what it is doing to them in that moment. And so, honestly, there's nothing in there that you really pull from. It's just a wholly original story. So that's my second pick.
I really enjoyed that movie, and what I liked about it, was frustrating, is that every character has shades of gray. Like you can look at Sam Rockwell's character and be like, this person is trash. And it's how you treat people. And then like as the movie goes on, like you say, it's accelerated, but it's like you get context. It's like, oh, okay, this helps me understand him a bit more. Or even Frances McDormand, in that, how she, was impacted by all of this, and like, you felt for her and what she lost, but it's also like your methods of how you did it. Like, did you not realize that there's consequences to that? And like, so you're harming yourself and everybody around you. Once again, Lucas Hedges in this movie. So not only you're grieving your daughter, your lost daughter, but like your son is the one that has to deal with the backlash as well. And so everyone's flawed. And that's what makes it relatable in regards to, you can feel the hurt, you can feel the pain, the frustration. But yeah, that cast is really really good. And also in a way where like it ends and you're like, okay, did we really resolve anything? No, but then it's like, okay, I don't know what happens next, because you set up something there that I want to see, then they cut it off and it's just the end.
And to jump in on that, I think back to your point with Get Out and their ending, it's really important for a writer to know what their movie needs. Like Get Out, they had the alternative ending, and I agree with you. I didn't know about that till later, but when I saw it in theaters, I'm like, I'm so glad it wasn't a negative ending. And, you know, for a certain population, we might have needed that more, but as an audience, I'm just like, we see this go sideways so much, and that is our reality in this country. But in this movie, in this point, I needed something else. And the way they did it, I think, served the movie. This movie, I think, leaving it on a bit of that cliffhanger, a little bit of that, you know, Inception, like, is it, or like, what are they going to do? I felt like that was perfect for this movie. It did leave you wanting more, but it kind of allows you to play this movie out with knowing how these characters are and what they're going to go do. It's just, I thought that is the ending this movie needed.
So I liked this movie. I'm not knocking it in any way. How do you feel about the cancel culture vibe to 3 Billboards?
You mean within the movie?
No, outside of it. This movie came in. I remember the Oscar season leading up to this, where everybody's like 3 Billboards. It's gonna be the best picture. There's no doubt about it. Like, it was the indie darling. Like, it's gonna be everybody's favorite. And then as people started seeing it, they were like, "Not cancel this movie," because of the fact that they're trying to give redemption to a racist cop, and that they're portraying Frances McDormand as the stereotypical angry woman.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, for me at least, I mentioned the turn happens quickly for that character, but you're bound by the time. So, and again, if I was to knock it, that would be the one unrealistic thing. But Frances McDormand, I didn't think that was stereotypical at all. I thought that was somebody owning their power and owning, like, really their anger in a way that typically, you know, if we're going there, I would say that you usually see men portrayed that way, where they're out to get revenge, they're out to bust some, you know, doors down, crack some heads, get some answers. And I would say you typically don't see women portrayed that way. And it was nice to see somebody that was unabashed. I mean, because there's so many characters in movies and TV we love for that, usually male characters, like, oh, they just don't care. And I think that Frances McDormand played someone that was that. But then on top of that, they showed that there's repercussions to the way you act as well when you act that way. And so,
yeah, I think it would be interesting. I think it would be interesting for the movie to come out now, given some of the other cancel culture things that we've had, given all the current events in this country right now, a movie that deals with sexual assault, that deals with racism, that deals with violence, that deals with corrupt cops. I think that would be a way more controversial movie now, but it was even controversial when it came out. So, no, I really enjoyed the movie. I was super hyped to go see it. And then I was kind of bummed that I had lost all its momentum because people canceled it.
Oh, see, yeah, like in Chicago, when the Oscar season comes, it usually comes a little early if you go to the artisan theaters. And so I go out of my way to find those. So I probably saw it way before that wave happened. Because that was the same year as Call Me by Your Name, I think. Or no, it was at least within those same years. But so, yeah, I saw a bunch of those way before. Shape of Water, all those I went up to like Wicker Park to go see in Evanston. So I might have caught it before that. And expectations is a big thing when you're talking about movies. But for me, I just went in with a clean slate and I enjoyed it. And I think, again, not to go outside of what we're talking about, but I think sometimes people put too much on movies. Like, they don't have to be a big statement all the time. Like, sometimes it's just what it is. And, you know, it's not supposed to solve our all the world's ills. But Corey, I'm curious on your thoughts on that with the backlash to it, I guess.
I think a lot of times too, especially I think a lot of that flack came from like the Academy, because when people are picked for those roles, like when a white person goes through a growth moment, they're given accolades, but then like when there are people of color, when they're Black and brown actors doing this work all the time, they don't get that same type of recognition. And so I think because Sam Rockwell has also played characters that are similar in that, of like, you know, every time he's nominated for a role that's problematic, which came later with like even Jojo Rabbit, which he was great in, but like he's also playing a Nazi. And so it's like you have a type and you keep rewarding that person. So I knew that was a thing in regards to, I think that also came around the Oscar So White campaign as well. So that became that came in the crosshairs of like, here's these other films and here's this other movie. And because Frances McDormand is one that is also a Oscar darling, like from Fargo all the way up. And so you have these caliber people who do well, and then the treatment of Black people in the movie as the characters that Sam Rockwell are interacting with. And so I think people are like, once again, when it comes to other like slave movies, like we're tired of seeing Black people be, persecuted or attacked or treated in a negative way, which is interesting about Get Out, because that's where it started, but then where it ended was completely different. And so that was kind of like that cathartic release, where in this movie was like, this is like, not depressing, but it's like, this is heavy, and it remains heavy, although there's no moments for like, the people of color in the film to get a come-uppings in some sense. So I saw that, but then I saw the movie, I was fine with it. And especially when you look at another movie like, say, Green Book, this movie right here, I was fine with. I enjoyed.
All right, just to respect time, because that's a good conversation, but I'm gonna keep going. So my last movie, and this is tough, there's so many good movies on here, but I'm going with Marriage Story. Speaking about Greta Gerwig and her connections earlier. Marriage Story, recent movie, Netflix movie. All the reasons for it not to really do what it did, but I think you can't deny this dialogue. I mean, first of all, there are things in movies where the performance has to drive it. And even with dialogue, you have to have a performance. But I think there's certain times, and Marriage Story is one of those, where you have to write these scenes, and you have to put the words in there that allows the actor to really follow through with it. And I think obviously there's the two main ones with Scarlett Johansson and the lawyer, and then there's the fight between Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, where the dialogue shines. But I think with that, it's a good movie. But what takes it a step up is that, kind of similar to like Get Out and other movies, everything that happens in that movie comes back around. But it's not sci-fi, it's real life. Like, you mentioned this one day, and now we're in court, and I'm using that against you so that I can get our child. It hit me on, like, it's so real, it's so well done, and then the dialogue is so good. I just think those three levels really and I wasn't expecting it. Expectations are big. I was not expecting this movie to be as good as it was, so it really floored me. Because I think my filter when I go see Oscar movies, quote unquote, is really like tough. I'm picking it apart. But when it's something like, okay, let me just watch this, and I'm not looking to pick it apart, it just knocked me off my feet. I think everything in that movie, from the story, which is kind of based off the director's life, but also, I think just putting us kind of in the middle of something that is a regular occurrence and shining a light on it. It was real strong, and it's hard for me. I guess I put it in third because originality wise, you can pull from a lot of like real life examples. So it wasn't like wholly original, like Shape of Water, which is like, what the hell is that? But I still say the writing was good enough to put it in my top three.
Well, I didn't think you were going to pick that, so slightly bummed. But no, that's where I was planning to go with my next one, so I get it. I love the dialogue in the movie. I don't think I've told either of you this. I love Adam Driver. Like, he's just been on such a hot streak, and we can argue about Star Wars in another podcast, but his angst is so great to me. But no, what you brought up about like the reality of how people do divorces and how you could say one thing and then it gets brought up in a different context, and it's like, oh, come on. Like, but they do it to each other. They're both so manipulative and conniving, but it's the stakes are high when you're trying to get custody of a kid. So as far as a child of divorce, it was something that hit super hard on me. But also, fun fact, Noah Baumbach still denies that it's about his life. So there's no fact that it is actually about him.
All right, that's speculation. I'll add that in.
Yes, thank you. Noah Baumbach's going to listen, and he's going to be upset. No, overall, I was a big fan of the movie. I definitely watched it with the Oscar lens, because you see Scarlett Johansson, you see Adam Driver, you see Noah Baumbach. You're instantly trying to get in the conversation with those people. It's just I still liked it, even though it was like, oh, I'm trying to get an Oscar this year.
All I will say is that Marriage Story was the scariest movie I saw in 2019. It was scary because it was like, this is real. Like, divorce is, being a child of parents who are divorced, but all happened when I was 5. So like I was oblivious to everything that goes into that, but to see that and to see these characters that, like, at moments you love them, and at times you hate them. And at one point where you're like, I don't like Scarlett Johansson, but it's like, but Adam Driver's not helping the situation either, like, at all. So like, they're flawed people making flawed choices with flawed results. And actually, the Laura Dern, Ray Liotta lawyers were like, and then Alan Alda popping up, like, that was all. They were also great parts of the movie to kind of see the inner workings of what you need to do and what do you sacrifice to obtain your dreams. And like, even like the little kid got on my nerves, but like, he was a little kid. That's what little kids do. But it's like, don't you see what your parents are trying to do? And like, when he was trying to have like the gathering and the kid wasn't acting right, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? But I mean, that's reality. And so even like the way it ends in a way of like, okay, there is some sort. It's not a happy ending, but it's like, okay, we're existing. This is the new normal. This is how we go forth. And that argument, like, that was just like, woo, like, just saying things that is like, you can't take that back. And that was very uncomfortable. And because of that, that makes it a very powerful scene in a movie moment.
All right, Brian, you're up. Sorry, I took your pick.
That's okay. I'm kind of happy about the pick I'm getting. I'm also just very curious where Corey's going to go with this last one, because there are 2 movies that if he picks them, I'm ready to flamethrow. We don't have to say which ones they are, but I'm shocked Terry didn't take them. Terrible take, Terry did better this time. But for my last pick, I'm going with Vice. I cannot explain to you how much I enjoyed this movie. I think Adam McKay is an all-star. He's just really so smart and so savvy. When you think about his journey of writing, and that he's gone from Anchorman to Step Brothers to The Big Short and Vice, it's baffling to me that he went from such potty humor to such intelligent humor, which makes an argument that it's actually pretty intelligent what he wrote for Step Brothers and Anchorman, but I digress. I think the movie was just so expertly executed in a way that tried to withhold some bias in it, but also show the sarcasm in the situation. For example, Sam Rockwell plays another dirtbag character in George W. But he plays in a way that's semi-accurate but semi-sarcastic. Christian Bale plays, oh my God, how am I not getting his name? Dick Cheney. Wow, screw me. I'm talking about Vice and I can't get the main character's name.
Sorry to that man.
He played Dick Cheney accurately but sarcastically. And I think that's what's so ingenious about the movie is that they're poking fun. I mean, Steve Carell is Donald Rumsfeld. Like, there's a lot of comedy that is about the George W. administration and about Dick Cheney's life and who he was as a person and some of the ironies that he had. But they did it in a way that was intelligent, that wasn't taking low blows. It was by taking smart approaches to be able to be like, oh, you said this, didn't you? And like, if you watched the debate last night, like Kamala was like, hey, you said this, didn't you? And it was like, no. That's exactly what this movie was. It was like, you said this. This is not made up. This is real. And I will tell you, I have not laughed so hard in my life when Dick Cheney turns and goes, I think I'm having a heart attack, and just falls to the floor. I lost it. I was like, of course, stoic-ass Dick Cheney's not even going to admit he's having a heart attack right there. But, man, I think just the sarcastic writing, the satirical writing, on top of, like, touching on political issues in a way that didn't cause super controversy was awesome, especially given the year it came out.
That was one of the last movies I saw, like during that Oscar race, and it was like on the last of my list. Like I'll see it when I see it. But yes, he made me believe he was Dick Cheney, and just I think as the viewer you get caught up into it. Even you you get duped, because at one point in the movie I think he turns to you and is like, I'm duping you at this point. Like you're not smarter than me. And like for the fact that Christian Bale transformed into that role was amazing. Like, so it was like him like you said with Steve Carell, like all those other people, but like Christian Bale was the MVP of that film. And this is that, like, I think also because this tied into real life, and you're like, part of it is fantasy, where you're like, this will never happen, and you're like, no, this is the prequel to what we're in right now.
Yeah, I would say if Marriage Story was the scariest movie of 2019, Vice was the scariest movie of 2018. I am not a horror junkie because it's just not scary, but the scariest stuff to me is the stuff that could actually happen. And when it comes to government, even The Big Short, I leave my stomach hurts leave watching that. But Adam McKay, I think, is probably co-MVP. The style of his movie is frenetic, it's different, it keeps you engaged. I definitely think it was so well crafted, and it has to be, to know when to tell the truth, when to tweak the truth, and when to just be goofy. And it is a delicate balance that I think McKay had to strike. And so it's a very tough movie to write. And it's interesting, it's an original screenplay because you're playing off a lot of stuff that actually happened, but I still think it was a big feat for anybody to write that. All right, Corey, take us home.
Corey, you got a meeting at 6, so good luck.
We're good. And so for the finale, my number 3 is Green Book. I'm kidding. It's not Green Book. So I went with a couple. There's a couple ones that are left that I have seen that I enjoyed, and I thought about this even more, like what has stuck with me. So I will just give shout outs to Roma. I really did enjoy Roma. And I know Terry mentioned The Shape of Water, which is a movie that I enjoyed. It was like, it doesn't win the Oscar. Like, I'm glad I won the Oscar. But thinking about it more, I'm like, it's fine. But the movie I'm thinking about that I'm probably by myself on this, is The Favorite. So with Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone, because it's not a movie that I would be usually interested in. Like, it's about Great Britain, it's the 18th century, we got kings and queens. Like, normally to me, I'm like, unless the Three Musketeers are in it, this is gonna be boring. But it was a dark comedy, and like I laughed throughout that whole movie just based on how they were treating each other. To see Emma Stone come in as one thing and then kind of manipulate her way in to get more power to be the queen's right hand person was amazing to watch, and to watch Rachel Weisz like be there and then her fall from grace. And then Nicholas Hoult, who was in it, who plays a jerk, but it's just like you took like modern dialogue and put that into an 18th century story. And so it's a weird story. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it was probably the biggest surprise that I had that year. And so, you know, Olivia Colman won. I was like, well deserved. Like, you deserve that. But yeah, it's just a unique film that I went in one way and when I come out and be like, huh, that was pleasant. Even though the story itself was like a dark story, but yeah, it was just a unique take on a genre that we've seen time and time again. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the favorite.
I am so upset. I am nauseous. I am crying. I will also tell you that my whole experience of seeing The Favorite was ruined based on the scenario of how I saw the movie. As you both know, that movie has a pretty rough scene in there. And when you're watching that scene with some of your students, you're just like, I don't know how to feel. This is uncomfortable. So that's, I think that colors a lot of my opinion of the movie. But listen, man, if we're talking about British movies, it's just, man, I just love the King's Speech. Give me a good jolly movie. Give me a good Winston Churchill. Just give me anything but grotesque dark humor. That was painful for me. And if any of you said The Shape of Water or 1917, I think I would have just left the call. The Shape of Water.
What?
The Shape of Water was trash.
Okay, Brian, this is too much at once.
And 1917, don't get me wrong. I think the cinematography of that movie deserved all the accolades it received. But it was a basic war movie. We've seen that before. 1917 wasn't nothing special.
But it had Tommy from Game of Thrones. Tommy.
Well, that didn't help him very much, did it?
Anyway,
Shape of Water is trash.
The Favorite was probably the other one that I was debating on picking as well. I don't know what Brian's talking about. Let me back you up, Corey. It is dialogue. It is a tour de force on dialogue. It is ultimately witty. It's so funny. I didn't know what the movie was going to be either, but it was so funny. And it just had a lot to say without being blunt about it. And I always appreciate that about a movie. Whether it was the way that the characters were being treated, the way that they had to do things because simply they were women. And that goes all the way up to the queen. And I think to do it in a comedic way and also to do it in a way that's not overbearing, it was very impressive. And that's not even counting the performances because those were great, but just talking about the writing and the story's original. Look, I'm real bad with history. I'm so bad with history, especially non-US history. It took me to the almost end to be like, is this real? Did this happen? Like, where are we at? And so to find out like it's completely original, it's just, I mean, even that part, I think about like the war part in politics, it was interesting the way it played out was pretty accurate, but it was all made up. And I think that was just interesting to me. And I think it was very strong. And I would pick it over a number of the movies left. And I don't know why you're hating on The Shape of Water. I mean, it was original, if anything. Let's say that.
Dude, she literally had sex with a fish.
Yeah, more than once.
That's uncomfortable.
And there
Why?
was a musical breakdown too in the middle.
What was up for adapted screenplay that year? What were the other nominees for Best Picture that year? Because there's no way I remember when that won, I threw a tantrum. I remember tweeting like, I will never watch the Oscars again if The Shape of Water wins. And then it won, and a whole bunch of people were like, will you please stop tweeting about the Oscars now?
Okay, you know what? We'll make that another episode. Bring our worst winner, and we'll debate what should have won. I think that'll be a good episode. But all right, so those are our lists. They should be on the screen. Go to the comment section. Let us know what you think about our list and who had the best. Enjoyed this as always, and hopefully we'll get together and do a couple more. And if you need to borrow the Big Sick, anybody listening, just hit me up. I'll mail it out to you, or it'll give you my Amazon login. It's on Prime too. So, but anyway, that's it for us. Thanks for listening. If you heard it here, it's official Canon.